watching commercial. This was really fun. It was a great spot.
I was slightly disappointed with the commercials last night. This one
This one was great.
Yeah.
2 minutes. It was like a little movie.
Time for some stories to start your morning, sponsored by Gillette Clear Gel. The 2019 Hall of Fame class was announced Saturday. Some of the headliners include Tony Gonzalez, Ed Reed, Ty Law, and Champ Bailey. See, what'd you make of this year's class?
I thought it was a great class. I like the fact that Kevin Mawai, offensive lineman, gets in. Those linemen are hard to get in. Ty Law, I thought should have gotten in before. I'm glad he gets in. It shows those New England Patriots, him with 3 Super Bowls, deserve to be in. And Gil Brandt, the scout, he gets in. Gil Brandt, good friend of mine for a long, long time. A guy behind the scenes, has drafted so much talent. He knows so much about football. Having him in the Hall, I believe, is the right thing.
All those guys deserving. When you have 3 first ballot guys like Champ, Ed, and Tony, you know there's going to be some guys who should be in but aren't in yet. Isaac Bruce still waiting, and Tom Flores. I mean, he's been waiting 30 years, it seems, but Tom Flores at some point should be in as well. But no issue with any of these guys. And it was nice to see a lineman get in. And it may be open to the door for Steve Hutchinson, who's also one of the finalists who eventually get in at some point.
The Rams averaged nearly 33 points a game this season, but managed just 3 points last night. Needless to say, not a winning formula. Sean McVay said he got out-coached by Bill Belichick. CeCe, what went wrong for the Rams?
Well, they didn't have enough variety in their offense. And Coach Mangini brings up a good point because their strength was playing 1 tight end, 1 running back all year, 3 wide receivers, and bringing them into close splits. That's not the way to play against New England. They went into the game plan. They didn't change that up. So in doing that, New England had a huge advantage. And New England is a running football team. This year, when they ran the ball, they were a winning team. When they ran the ball more than 20 times, they were 14-2. Yeah, I think 14-2 when they're running the team. Dusty's got my stats. Okay. I messed it up.
No.
They're a running football team. They are not a throwing football team since they lost Josh Gordon. They morphed into that team late in the season in the playoffs.
And they were undefeated when Sony Michel had at least 100 yards. He didn't quite get to 100 last night. I got you, see. The other thing that happened last night is the Rams' offensive stars weren't stars. The offensive line got manhandled. Brandon Cooks had 2 chances for touchdowns. One on a great golf throw there and the other on a more questionable golf throw. Both times hits his hands. He doesn't have it. And then Todd Gurley, as we've talked about, basically MIA. Tough to, you don't want to be held to 3, but tough to score a lot when that happens.
Big game for Gronk, though. He had the catch to set up the Patriots' only touchdown. Last night marked his 3rd Super Bowl victory as a Patriot. He was asked about possibly retiring after the Super Bowl. Take a listen to Rob Gronkowski.
Tonight, it's about celebrating with my teammates. And that decision will be made in a week or 2, you know, down the future. Because tonight, that's what it's about, is celebrating with my teammates. And that's what I'm worried about tonight. We're going to have a good time. Bill told me he's partying tonight, so you know it's going to be good.
I'm going to take the under on Bill partying. Can I do that?
Well, that's not exactly how it would work,
okay,
but sure, no problem.
Sure. Not surprised either. CeCe, could we ever see Gronk play? Obviously not to this level, but do you think this was his last game?
Yeah, I think it is. After last year's Super Bowl loss, what did he say? Don't know what I'm going to do. Anytime that I get into this retirement type speech, when a person says, I'm going to take a week or 2, that means they got a decision already made up. If you put a time restraint on when you're going to make that, compared to, I'm going to take some time off, I'm going to see how my body recovers, talk to my trainers, talk to my family. No, he said, about a week or 2, I'm going to make this announcement. I believe he's made his decision. I believe we've seen the last of him. This game has taken a toll on Gronk. He's not the same player. Doesn't have the same speed down the field. Doesn't have the same variety in his route running. He's very limited right now in what he wants to do. Still a dominant blocker. Still could play football for several more years, but he wouldn't be a great player. And I think that's the thing that forces him out of the game.
And I think it's 75-25 in likelihood that this was his last game. I don't think it's definitive, but I think it's more likely than not. The Patriots will miss him now. Not just on those big plays like we saw there, the catch to get it down to the 2-yard line, but on his ability to turn them into the dominant running team that they became this year, his ability as their best offensive lineman into the line blocker, that is very hard to duplicate. And the fact that he is a consistent mismatch. On this play, you saw the Rams in total disarray.
Yes.
You saw 58 Corey Littleton running over to Gronk at the very last second. The Patriots had, as you mentioned, they've gone 3 straight plays or 4 straight plays where they had a really odd personnel to have no one in the backfield. They had 2 tight ends, 2 running backs.
They ran a formation that they very seldom or ever run, just to see how they were going to line up and play them the Rams. The Rams decided to play them in man-to-man. The first couple times he goes away from Gronk. Gronk was running the same route. This time the linebacker comes over late. Brady just needs that little bit of time, take advantage of it, puts them down inside the 5-yard line to set up their only touchdown.
The Rams had personnel out there that screamed, we're running the Patriots, pardon me, had personnel out there that screamed, we're running the football. James Devlin is on the field, and the backup tight end is on the field as well.
Yep, Dwayne Allen.
Dwayne Allen, thank you.
Both of them predominantly are blockers.
Right, there's no threat to catch the football, and if they do catch the football, you're tackling them immediately, and the Rams couldn't match up with it. They were confused by it because they had a run-stopping personnel out there. They throw the ball 3 straight times out of empty there, and Gronk makes the huge play. So he will be missed, but I also think it can't be that fun. I'd imagine it's not as fun for Gronk anymore. Your body hurts. You're not as prolific. You're not getting a lot of those Gronk spikes because you're not scoring as many touchdowns. And you know you're not as dominant as you once were.
And he didn't meet any of the incentives that were there. No. So the money, it's not like the money's going to be there. How big of a drop-off was it for Gronk this year from what you saw this season?
I mean, Gronk was in the conversation as one of the greatest tight ends ever. Man, you split him out, man, he could run any route, man, especially in the middle of the field, seam routes. He just can't do that anymore. He's not the threat. They moved him outside the Kansas City game. He runs a fade pattern against an all-pro player. He runs a slant against one of the best defenders. So Gronk is a special football player. That part right there, you can only do that for so long. His prime, based on the physical style, it just was not as long as the other tight ends. He has suffered from being the biggest guy on the field. And his style, he's going to take a lot of big hits. You can even see in the ball they dropped off to him to the flat. The linebacker, when he hits the ground, man, I thought potentially he's going to either hurt his shoulder or potentially have some type of concussion when he hits the side of his head on the turf. But that's the style for which he's played. Man, he's played at a high level.
And Gronk last year, 1,000 yards, 8 touchdowns, and it wasn't even one of his best years. This year, he had the numbers that he had put up 2 years ago, and 2 years ago only played half the season. Like, he's just, he's not the dominant pass catcher he was. To me, he's a Hall of Famer, and if he does retire, they're going to struggle to replace him.
All right, sticking with the Patriots, they pulled out the underdog card this season. Sure, they were just 3-5 on the road. Sure, they lost back-to-back games in December, and sure, Tom Brady's 124 years old. But come on, underdogs? The Patriots will tell you yes, and they tell you they use the doubters as motivation all postseason. Here is their coach, Bill Belichick, on those haters.
It's sweet. It's sweet, Jim. Everybody counted us out from the beginning of the season to mid-season, but we're still here.
Nick, how unlikely was the Patriots winning the Super Bowl given how much they struggled throughout the regular season?
I think this is clearly the most unlikely championship they have since the first one. Like, I think that the first one was shocking. You lose your quarterback early in the year. You have this no-name kid, 6th-round pick takeover. The offense is not prolific throughout. You're a 2-touchdown underdog, a legitimate underdog in the Super Bowl, and you win. Every other Super Bowl they've won or they've played in, they've been positioned as the favorite, and they've been the better and more talented team. What happened this year was, they had 5 losses for the first time in a decade. They also, I think you can argue, played 3 consecutive playoff games where they weren't the more talented team. They didn't have more talent than the Rams. I don't think they have more talent than the Chiefs. Chargers game's close, but they out-executed you. Brady made big plays in big spots, particularly at the end of that Chiefs game. And their defensive game plan, drawn up by Brian Flores and Bill Belichick, was spectacular. So, like, they were doubted with good reason. The Bears, the Rams, the Saints, the Chiefs, the Chargers finished the year with better records than them. When there's 32 teams in the league, 5 of them had a better regular season than the Patriots
and
did.
You're New England. You're not the Jets. You're not the Dolphins.
Right.
You're not some other team. You're the team that already had been to 8 Super Bowls before this. So to think that people give up on them, Nick, this is what I understood, and I understood it my best this weekend. I stayed at New England's hotel because I was staying with the NFL. So I stayed at New England's hotel. I talked to some players. I talked to some coaches. And more importantly, I talked to the die-hard New England fans. And you know something? They doubted it too.
Yes.
They had doubts about this team too. Now, what happened was the team that showed up yesterday is not the same team that was on the field in September. It's not the same team that was on the field in October, and it wasn't the same team that was on the field in December when they were in Miami.
No.
They evolved as a football team better than anyone else this year. So let me tell you, if the team that they had, New England, showed up from September yesterday, they would have got whooped. If the team that showed up from October would have showed up yesterday, they would have gotten beaten. New England got better, and their weaknesses, they didn't allow them to be as exposed as they were earlier in the season. They didn't have to go on the road again because they went to Kansas City and got that big win. So this is a huge win for them. But let's just be honest. They weren't playing New England type football in those 3 losses on the road by double digit. That speaks to it.
And they played 3 playoff games. 2 of them, they had the extra week to prepare. And they have a brilliant head coach, a D coordinator that's about to be a head coach on his own, a brilliant quarterback, and a brilliant offensive coordinator. The one game they didn't have the extra week, the Kansas City game, that game they damn near lost. That game goes to overtime. Like this is why I'm a little irritated with some of the local New England media and the New England fans that are now acting like, oh, we believed all along. No, you.
That's not what they were telling me all weekend.
And it's not what they were saying on the local radio in New England. It's not what the fans were tweeting. They had all the same doubts we did. Okay? One of the reasons the Patriots we talked about how it was kind of a fraudulent, nobody believed in us. But maybe it was legit for the Patriot players who live amongst Patriot fans, listening to EEI and the Sports Hub in Boston. Those guys doubted them all year. That Miami game, it was the ceiling has fallen on us. Like, we're not going to get home field. You never lose games like this.
You heard it from Bill Belichick, who he said it never permeates. It never seeps down to the coach. The coach will never say it. You heard him say it in the postgame to all
Jenna,
the doubters.
can I tell you something? They get on that TV and lie every day. And that's a lie. Bill Belichick knew that they could not win without it. They changed after Josh Gordon got suspended. So the team, if you thought you could win, you would have stayed exactly like you are. They changed. This is a dominant run team. If they don't run the ball 20 times, they're not going to win. That's what their record showed. So they're not the same team. They evolved, and they realized this is not good enough to be Super Bowl champs. So that part, I got a great deal of respect for.
And one thing that I will admit that I misjudged, and I think a lot of people misjudged, is how good this defense actually could be and was. I was late to the party on how good Stephon Gilmore had played all year long. Till at the end of the year, I'm like, wait, PFF says he's been the best corner in football?
Yep.
And because they don't value guys the way I think the traditional stats do. Like Chandler Jones, for example. Double-digit sack guy, they said we can deal without him. They value more of a system defensively. That I looked at their defense and said, that, you know, how many elite playmakers do they have? They have a defense, a great D coordinator is now going to be gone, Belichick, and defensive players that know exactly what they want to do. I didn't think they had it in them defensively. Told the Chiefs to 30 yards in the first half. Told the Rams to the entire Super Bowl. So that one I underrated. But the team as a whole was about properly rated. And what they did was, as in vintage Patriot fashion, played their absolute best football they've played all year. And something that helped them a lot, they were incredibly healthy at the end of the year. They had one guy on the injury report leading up to the Super Bowl. That's an enormous windfall for them.
Belichick has won 19 straight games against a quarterback under the age of 25. All right, so they get another win against another young quarterback with a bye week. So this was a great year that didn't start off great. New England finished it, and their team evolved better than anyone else in the NFL. That's why they're Super Bowl champions.
Memo to teams, go out and get old quarterbacks if you're going to play the Patriots in the Super Bowl. Coming up, did Sean McVay get exposed last night? That's next.